House will come back to order. This House will come back to order. All members take up position again. Mr. Clerk, you want to ring the bell? The clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Honoring the life and memory of Clarence Axon, Jr. Honoring the life and memory of George Phillips Ingram. Honoring the life and memory of Dwayne Warren Hunter. Honoring the life and memory of Walker Phillips. Honoring the life and memory of Jeremy Williams. Recognizing and commending Mr. Rex Kennedy on his outstanding public service and line foreman with the Upson Electric Membership Corporation. Recognizing the importance of the Okefenokee Swamp in Georgia. Recognizing March as School Board Recognition Month and commending the dedication and hard work of the members of the Henry County School Board. Recognizing and commending Dr. Ken D. Kindy on his outstanding service. Recognizing March as School Board Recognition Month. Recognizing the nation of Israel and its meaningful and mutually beneficial relationship with the United States and the state of Georgia. Congratulating the Norcross High School boys basketball team for winning the 2022 GHSA Class 7A State Basketball Championship, congratulating the Norcross High School's girls basketball team for winning the 2022 GHSA Class 7A State Basketball Championship, recognizing and commending Arch D. Smith on his tenure as State 4-H leader and for his 37-year career with Georgia Cooperative Extension Service, congratulating the Marist School War Eagles girl basketball team for winning the 2022 GHSA 4A State Basketball Championship, recognizing and commending Commander Sean McMillan, and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privilege resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. Clerk will read an invite resolution. Caption.
A resolution recognizing and commending the Director of the House Budget and Research Office, Martha Rigby Wigden, for her decades of devoted and skillful service to the Georgia General Assembly, and inviting her to be recognized by the House of Representatives.
To assist the chair in the invite resolution, the chair recognizes the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, Chairman England. You want to say something?
Good afternoon, everyone. You know, a lot of special people pass through our lives. And there's a young lady standing beside me here this afternoon that has certainly passed through my life and made it better by her passing through. There's 11 million other Georgians that could say the same thing. You know, the quiet servants that work behind the scenes, they never seek the attention, they never ask for the attention. They do a job. They do a job because they love the job they do. For the last 11 years, Martha has headed up the House Budget and Research Office. And for a couple of decades before that, she worked in various other places and parts of the General Assembly. She started across the hall in the Senate and had the good sense and good favor to decide to come over to the House side. But all joking aside, she has been a dedicated public servant, not to any particular party, not to any particular person, but to all 180 of us here in the House, and many of those in the Senate that she worked with while she was there, and many that continue to call on her today with questions and just needing to know sometimes what's going on to help better understand certain things. So, y'all, you know, Martha's been with us for 32 years. She started when she was 5 years old. My wife taught me to say things like that, and Martha has enforced those things. But, you know, it's been 32 incredible years. She will be retiring from state government at the end of this calendar year, so December 31st of this year will be her retirement. And truly for the last 11 years has been one of those people that I have leaned on almost daily, and quite honestly daily, in the role that I've played as chairman of the Appropriations Committee. But she has certainly been a rock, not just for me, but for every one of you sitting out there as well. There's no bigger fan or no bigger advocate for state employees, and no bigger advocate, quite frankly, for the citizens of Georgia than Martha Wigden has been during her entire tenure. So I'm going to let the speaker say a couple of things, and then we're going to love on her a little bit.
You know, I've been here a total of 26 years, with counting 6 years that I was lost and staggering through the wilderness on the other side.
Right there with you.
She was in the Senate when I was in the Senate. When I came back to the House, guess what? She was in the House. So she has been there every step of the way with me and has been an invaluable resource. She does love this house and takes much pride in the work that we do. She doesn't respect party. Extremely fair person, and it's important to her that people like Chairman England and myself have all of the information that we need. The morning after I was nominated for Speaker the first time, the first stop I made was the House Budget Office, and there I was told the condition of our state's economy. And I thought, I wonder if it's too late now to withdraw the request for this office. But she laid it out for me, and when we got through that session, it wasn't easy. But she's been a great director in this position. I really don't want even to imagine that office without her, but she has taken a lot of pride in the office, and they have pride in her. As you can tell, they're all here today, and she's recognized nationally. A couple of years ago, she was honored with an award as the #1 staff person or something like that by NCSL. I know I got the name of it wrong, but it was a very prestigious honor that gave her. Honored her above all others in legislative staff work in the country. So Martha, we're proud of you. We're going to miss you, and but I'm keeping your cell phone number in my phone. So you're going to be working still for free occasionally. Please help me welcome to the podium Martha Wigdon.
We got business to do. Thank you. Truly humbled. And it has been an honor and a pleasure to work for the legislative institution. What a great institution, and I just take so much pride in how we get things done here and how much we can accomplish when we all work together. The staff of the House Budget and Research Office, the staff throughout the legislature in Georgia is phenomenal. And I stand up here to your applause, but really it belongs to everyone who works to get the job done around us. Our staff, the talent, the dedication is incredible. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to my family. I've raised 3 children here as a single mom, and you all have wrapped your arms around me to enable me to do that. My children have been so supportive. Proud to say that all 3 of them are in some form of public service now, so the tradition carried on. They heard you as they grew up. They used to run around and play on a hand truck through the halls on Saturdays and Sundays while we were working. So they're all familiar with the place, but without them and their support, I wouldn't have been here. It's an honor to work for people who also cherish the institution the same way that we do, and put the goodwill and the good policy for people ahead of everything else. So it's been a pleasure to serve you, and we have a few more months left, so a lot can be done, but thank you. Appreciate the honor.
I know some of you may want to greet Martha and maybe get your picture made with her. So she'll be out in the south ante room. And we'll do the greeting out there. If one of Kate or you or Ben one can go out there, that'd be great. All right, we're back on the rules calendar. We are back on the rules calendar. The clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 573.
Senate Bill 573 by Senator Brass the 28th, Walker the 20th, and Robertson the 29th. To be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7, Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to regulation and construction of hospitals and other healthcare facilities so as to require hospitals and ambulatory surgical centers to utilize surgical smoke evacuation systems during surgical procedures. This bill having referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Newton to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What we're dealing with in Senate Bill 573 today deals with a challenging problem in our operating rooms and surgical suites, especially those who live their entire working lives there. When electrocautery is used to try to control blood flow or blood bleeding, there's a smoke, what's called surgical smoke, that's produced. The nurses, the OR techs, the surgeons, the anesthesia providers, all are exposed to this 40, 50, 60 hours a week sometime. While most facilities do have a procedure for dealing with this, there are still ones in Georgia that do not. SB 573 will require that all facilities have a policy, and that includes hospital operating rooms or surgery centers to contain surgical smoke evacuation. It just requires them to have a policy, recognize that this can be a challenge, it can be a problem for those who work in that area. We certainly want to take care of our operating room nurses, our OR techs, our anesthesia providers, surgeons. We want them to be as healthy as possible. This bill will just help us achieve that and take one step forward to protecting our healthcare workers that we value so much in those particular operating room settings. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to answer any questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you. I appreciate your support on Senate Bill 573.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 573, the ayes are 149, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption of Senate Bill 330.
Senate Bill 330 by Senator Albers of the 56th, Dugan of the 30th, Robertson of the 29th, Miller of the 49th, and others, be entitled an act to amend Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to insurance so as to prohibit insurers from canceling, modifying coverage, refusing to issue, or refusing to renew life insurance policies solely because the applicant or insured donated a liver or kidney. This bill having referred to the Committee on Ways and Means, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Gravely to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
This is my first bill this year, this session, and I think they've got a picture they're going to put up on the screen. It was very fitting this morning when Representative Frazier led a delegation of folks here at the well for a morning order to discuss Rare Kidney Disease Month. The gentleman standing is a member of my family, former Haralson County Commissioner Adam Buddy, and the gentleman laying there is Nathan Hardiman. They didn't know each other before a chance meeting at a local ball field in Haralson County, and they were raising money for Nathan. And Nathan jokingly, when Adam said, "What can I do for you?" Nathan jokingly said, "Well, you can give me a kidney." And Adam did. I'm happy to report the 1-year checkup went surprisingly well. He's 80% recovered. And friends, this bill simply does one thing. It says that if you offer a kidney or if you have a liver transplant to an individual who needs it, whose life will be continued, that an insurance company can't cancel, it can't change your policy, or it can't deny you coverage on life insurance. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, those two gentlemen, and there are many more stories, testimonies across this state, individual strangers who willingly sacrificed an organ so that another Georgian could continue to live. I would ask for your favorable consideration on SB 330. And Mr. Speaker, I'll yield for questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Dean Smyrie rise?
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that I have a dear friend that had a kidney transplant last night, and we want to thank the gentleman for this good piece of legislation. It's something that's needed in our state. Is that not true?
If the gentleman so states, I know it is. What purpose does Representative Bonner rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that I graduated from high school with Nathan Hardiman, and I'm very glad that he was able to get that kidney, and believe he has 6 children that he's raising today.
If the gentleman so states, I know that it is true. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 330, the ayes are 157, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 558.
Senate Bill 558 by Senator Gooch, the 51st, Gaines of the 47th, Dugan of the 30th, Dixon of the 45th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 32 the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the Department of Transportation so as to amend notice provisions relative to meetings for the election of board members. This bill having referred to the Committee on Transportation, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Brad Thomas to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Today I rise to present Senate Bill 558, LC number 393445S. This bill seeks to do three things. Section 1, it seeks to amend the code so notification via email instead of written notice for elections for the GDOT board. Section 2, it replaces the word proposals with proposal revisions, clarifying that after the first round of the bidding process is complete, additional proposal revisions can be accepted. Section 3, it extends the length of allowable for a modular home to 84 feet from the hitch for the current requirement of 80 feet. And Section 4 reiterates that this will become law if the governor signs it or without a signature within the expiration window. And that is the end of the bill. I'll yield for questions. Awkward silence.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 558, the ayes are 156, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 486.
Senate Bill 486 by Senator Harper the 7th, Walker the 20th, Anderson the 24th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Article 60, Chapter 8, entitled 2, the official code of Georgia Antietam relating the Agricultural Commodity Commission for propane, so as to provide for full or partial remote communication with regard to public hearings. This bill having referred to the Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Mathis to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I present to you Senate Bill 486. This is a bill from Senator Tyler Harper. This bill is dealing with the Agriculture Commodity Commission and for propane. What it's doing is it's changing the code section for relating to the public hearings and marketing orders for it. It's going to have it where you can have it either in person, or you'll be able to partially do it with remote communication. It'll also be able to not put the notification in the Atlanta Journal or Atlanta paper. It will also allow for you to do it on the website of the commissioner and the Farmers and Consumers Market Bulletin and other publications. It also does that all the testimony will be public. It changes the effectiveness proposed assessment of the effective. It'll be from 50% to 25%, and then the vote for this will be 2/3 instead of 50%. This bill was carried last year for all the other general commodities by Senator Lee Anderson in SB 247. We passed it unanimously. So what had happened, this being a different code section, this bill had to be brought today to get propane up to standards with that. So, Mr. Speaker, that is the bill, and with that, I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of Senate Bill 486. The ayes are 154, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 479.
Senate Bill 479 by Senator Hatch of the 50th, Miller of the 49th, Dugan of the 30th, and others, be entitled an act to amend Code Section 1611-131 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to possession of firearms by convicted felons and first offender probationers, so as to specify that each firearm in the possession or attempted possession of certain offenders shall be charged as a separate offense. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary Non-Civil, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Lott to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am here to present today SB 479, which makes certain that a felon who receives, possesses, or transports a firearm is charged for each firearm connected to that violation. SB 479 adds 2 lines to code that clarifies language so that each firearm that a felon possesses shall be charged as a separate offense. Prior to 2018 and the Supreme Court case of Coates versus State, Georgia did charge for each firearm, but that decision made it so a felon could possess an unlimited number of firearms and be charged with only one crime. SB 479 takes action to ensure that convicted felons are held properly accountable when illegally possessing firearms. A few weeks ago, this body unanimously supported this same language clarification that was needed from the Coates v. State case, but it pertained to child pornographic images and child molestation. And I ask for your vote again with this language clarification measure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield for questions.
Do you yield?
Yes, sir, I yield.
Chair recognizes Representative McLaurin to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the floor leader yield?
I do, yes, sir.
Thank you. As everybody might recall, I supported the other measure that you brought forward regarding language clarification in child porn cases because I agreed with the public policy. Obviously, this is different, right? Firearms. And so my first question, if I can get 1 or 2 in, is can you articulate the specific policy basis for giving sentencing judges more than 10 years, which is the current maximum for these felon in possession charges? What is the policy rationale for expanding the amount of exposure for felony in possession cases past 10 years to decades or potentially longer?
So first I'll start with this policy specifically is the language clarification on the Coates v. State case where the word any had been used, and then they determined that to mean one crime. That is why it's relative to what we did in the past. This is exactly the same. It is taking that word any and making clarification that it means each. And as far as extending a felon's length of, or number of charges, or length of stay, shall I say, it is a deterrent. It is a known deterrent. And I do know that the Georgia Bureau of Investigation has stepped up and spoken on this, as well as the Prosecuting Attorneys Council, to say that they recognize that it is a deterrent. And counties that do prosecute with higher charges that criminals tend to avoid those counties versus lesser sentences. If that answers your question.
I think so. Would the floor yield for one final question?
Yes,
just to
no,
clarify?
absolutely.
Thank you so much. So speaking of deterrence, and I don't want to assign to you, put words in your mouth that you haven't said, but in general, when we debate about guns, one of the refrains we hear a lot is that we want to protect the good guy's right to have a gun, but we don't want to over-regulate because we don't think that those regulations do much to deter bad guys from getting guns anyway, right? This is an argument against gun control.
True.
Can you explain, if you agree generally with that framework, that government regulations don't prevent bad guys, quote unquote, from getting guns?
True.
How does this law, which is basically just an increased regulation attempting to regulate, quote, bad guys with guns, why would it do anything to stop the gun problem that we have?
So this law does not regulate a bad guy from getting a gun. A bad guy will always have a gun. What this does is it puts him in jail for a lot longer. Therefore, he won't have one tomorrow.
Okay, well, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Lady has yielded the well. We have another member who wished to be heard on the bill. The chair recognizes Representative Kennard to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to oppose SB 479. I want to talk just a few moments on big picture criminal justice policy, a perspective on that. I acknowledge that there is certainly evil in the world. There are evil people who have committed horrible crimes, and sending them away for life is appropriate because the punishment fits that crime. But I also want to acknowledge that this group is the exception and not the rule. When you take a closer, objective look at most of the folks who are locked up in our state prison system, it's not this outlier of extremely wicked people. But oftentimes our tough on crime policies that are intended for the worst of us also swallow up people who are not inherently wicked, but they're just lost, they're misguided, and they've made some unfortunate mistakes. The word understand literally means to stand under. And the definition is clear. When you stand under, you have better understanding. When you have proximity, you can better have insight and understanding. Something may look a certain way from a distance, but when you get up close and personal to it, it often looks very different. My profession lends me to a perspective where I have proximity to those who are justice involved. I do in-reach to the prisons, and I work in re-entry to find folks who are released from prison a safe place and some support. So when you stand under our criminal justice and prison system, you begin to understand that there's a connection between educational performance and incarceration. We hover around 50 to 60,000 prisoners in our state system, and most of them are school dropouts with a very low literacy skill set. Literacy is almost a perfect spot-on predictor of the way that a person's life will turn out. It is commonly known, we have said it in this session, that third grade is the greatest indicator. A child who is not reading on level by third grade is significantly more likely to spend time in corrections. Some states have used this metric to determine future prison populations and prison construction. These are not evil people, it's just that the educational infrastructure has failed them. What is alarming right now is that currently 2/3 of Georgia third graders are not reading on level. That's a crisis in my mind. We need more investment into our pre-K system, and that's paramount. And it's also more cost effective. It costs about $4,400 to educate a 4-year-old in our pre-K system, but it costs us $25,000 a year to incarcerate someone. When you stand under our correctional and prison system, you begin to understand that our correctional facilities are filled with the poor. The overwhelmingly majority of the men and women in our prison system were represented by a public defender. They did not have the means or resources to lawyer up, and they had to take what they could, which is often inadequate. I know that many of our Georgians in prisons, if they had the economic ability for a top-tier attorney, they would not have been convicted, and many certainly would have received a more favorable sentence. I'm in complete agreement with Brian Stevenson, the author of Just Mercy, who says, In our current criminal justice system, you are treated better if you are rich and guilty than if you are poor and innocent. Therefore, wealth, not culpability, is determining our outcomes. These people are not inherently wicked, they're poor. When you look under our prison and correctional system, you understand that people of color are overrepresented in our facilities. African Americans represent 30% of Georgia's general population, but they represent 61% of our prison population. Now listen, I'm not trying to play the race card here. This is just a factual reality. It's incontrovertible. It's irrefutable. The reality is that 1 in 3 black men in this century will spend time incarcerated. For men that look like me, that's 1 in 17. It's not that people of color are more criminal in nature. It's just this ratio simply reveals the racial bias that exists in our criminal justice system from beginning to end. Nationwide, there are more black men in our criminal system than were enslaved in 1850. When you take a deeper look and stand under this system, you will see the connection between the era of slavery and our current state of mass incarceration. There is a direct line between this history and our present. Brian Stevenson also says that slavery didn't end in 1865, it merely evolved. Legalized slave labor ended, but then it shape-shifted to prison labor because of the 13th Amendment loophole. Slavery was illegal except as punishment for crime. So the effect was black men were released from their slave shackles only to be reshackled as prisoners because of a crop of new laws passed in the South called black codes that were used to convict and incarcerate black men. So they went back to those same fields as prisoners. This evolved into convict leasing, chain gangs, which was a major revenue stream in southern states, including Georgia. You cannot even understand 21st century mass incarceration without contextualizing it with our slavery past. That's why the teaching of honest, inclusive history is so important, to understand that the residue of the past is still upon us. We are not in a post-racial society. When you look under our prison and correction system, you understand the connection between mental health illness and incarceration. We've said it many times this session, that the #1 mental health service provider in our state is our state prisons. Because we have neglected more favorable policies to mental health, we have ranked so low in our access to mental health care and treatment. As a consequence, these individuals have ended up in our correctional system. These are not evil doers. They are not criminal. They are sick. They are ill. Thank God for HB 1013. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for putting your political courtesy behind this, because mental health reform is prison reform. So when we inventory our state prison population, one could argue that we have criminalized poverty, criminalized race, criminalized mental health. Now, something else worth mentioning, it cannot be ignored, is there is an economic component at play here. That capitalism too often creeps into our criminal justice policies. Proof positive is the private prison industry. Some say that crime doesn't pay. I beg to differ. Core Civic and other private prisons are profiteering on crime and punishment. Core Civic is traded on the New York Stock Exchange. You can buy their stock right now. You can be a shareholder right now. It's selling at $10.20 as of this morning. I'm in the process of visiting all of our state prisons. I'm about halfway through that. I got interrupted by COVID. But I have visited one of the Core Civic prisons, and the warden told me out of his own mouth that the state of Georgia is contracted to keep them at 90% capacity. So we have a supply and demand thing going on here. We have to keep feeding them customers. So these hard-on-crime policies help keep this business alive and ensure that we meet our contractual obligation. So in conclusion, I think there is a reason why my favorite spiritual teacher said, I was hungry and you fed me, I was thirsty and you gave me drink, I was naked and you clothed me, I was a stranger and you took me in, and I was in prison and you visited me. I think if we became more personally engaged and personally involved into this issue, we would have better proximity and subsequently better understanding moving forward, rather than being hard on crime with these pile-on punishments I think we should consider being smart on crime and actually address the root causes of mental illness, poverty, low literacy, and inequity. Mr. Speaker, I yield the will.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Saines rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that this Republican-led House has recognized the severity of not following our state's laws while not infringing on the constitutionally protected rights, and there's nothing inconsistent about that?
If the gentleman so states. What purpose does Representative McLeod rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that racism is institutionalized in the United States of America?
If I'm sure the lady believes that to be true. What purpose does Chairman Knight rise?
Parliamentary
State
inquiry.
your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, isn't this bill simply about when a felon who's been convicted or goes back and then has a crime with a gun, that it's after the fact, and that's all this does, is make sure that the criminal...
If the gentleman so states, I'm sure he believes that to be true. What purpose does Representative Maynor rise?
Parliamentary
State
inquiry.
your inquiry.
Although, Mr. Speaker, I am voting yes for this bill, is it not true that domestic violence victims are 5 times more likely to be killed when their abuser has access to a gun? 25 million U.S. adults have been threatened or non-fatally injured by an intimate partner with a firearm. Women in the United States are 21 more times likely to be killed with the gun than women in other high-income countries. And is it not further true that out of all the ways an intimate partner kills their partner, 55.9% of the time, it is with the gun?
If the lady so states, it certainly sounds as if she has done her research. All right, we'll do one more. Chair recognizes Representative LaRicchia. What purpose does he rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that regardless of race and socioeconomics, the easy way to stay out of prison is simply by obeying the law?
That's a pretty simple approach. Okay, have all members voted? Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 479, the ayes are 89, the nays are 62. This bill, having failed to receive a constitutional majority, has failed. What purpose does Representative Lott rise?
Make a motion.
State your motion.
Motion to reconsider.
Lady has moved that this House reconsider its action, and that will be on the next, be on tomorrow's legislative calendar. The last 3 days are when we take them up immediately. What purpose does Representative Cannon rise? She waves. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 397.
Senate Bill 397 by Senator Goodman of the 8th, Tippins of the 37th, Payne of the 54th, and others, be entitled an act to amend titles 15, 20, 25, 40, 42, and 43 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to courts, education, fire protection, and safety. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Higher Education, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Meeks to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring before you today House Bill 397, high school equivalency legislation bill. As I was thinking, Mr. Speaker, about this bill and its impact on society and what we do here is not for ourselves but for others, it brought me back to a theme of a book that I've been reading and found in book 2, chapter 10. It talks about, it's a theme, it talks about 5 to go, and it's the stages that man goes through throughout life, and that life is, we're ever changing and it's never ending. It's a constant cycle. And those being growth, entanglement, unbelief, almost reprobation, and also conversion. And Mr. Speaker, it goes further to remind us that we should never rest on our laurels, that we should continue to grow throughout our lives in ever changing, which is what this bill allows us to do, Mr. Speaker. There are currently over 1 million adults with no high school education diploma in the state of Georgia. TCSG is now offering and providing a multiple high school equivalency test for these individuals to take, one being GED, one being the high set, and one being a Career Plus exam. Mr. Speaker, what this does is it adds the high set as well as Career Plus to the code, allowing those individuals who may take those exams and come into our state, number one, to be recognized, and number two, for individuals in our state who are looking to get their GED or their equivalency to take one of these other 2 tests as well. The other thing that this bill does, Mr. Speaker, is within the current code, the GED, there is a payment for individuals who want to take this test. We moved that payment from the backside up to the front, so if they're going ahead and take it, we can go ahead and get that reimbursement from Georgia Student Finance Commission to TCSG without having to wait on them to complete the exam, submit the reimbursement, and then make the transfer of funds. So, Mr. Speaker, that's what the bill does, but entertain any questions if we have any.
Do you yield for a question?
Yes, sir, I'll yield for a question.
Chair recognizes Representative Wiedauer for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir, I yield.
I appreciate you bringing this measure, assisting these individuals who want to further their education. As you have recently furthered your education, could you tell me how this bill applies to the theory of the lay stall?
As it applies to the theory of lay stall, yes, sir. We as members of the legislature, we have the ability to look at legislation as it grows old, to amend it and bring it into a form that is more helpful to the individuals who across our state.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll yield the will and ask for your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 397, the ayes are 147, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Senate Resolution 463 will be postponed until the next legislative day. For what purpose does, Chair recognizes Chairman Carson. Strike that. We're not going to recognize Chairman Carson.
I'm going to find out today when he wants, if he's just going to tee them all up one day, take a couple hours. We've done it in the past. Hopefully that's what Haley's putting together. Yeah, it's kind of been random. And some of the easy ones, I would say go ahead and do them, but that's what's wrong. What time? Well, he's trying to get out message. So who was it here? I mean, you got a bunch of everybody putting excuses up. Well, I don't see, there's all
Members of the House will please take your seats. Members will please take your seats. Give attention to the member in the well the chair recognizes for a special order. Representative Kausha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to say a few words before the final few days of the session for me. To be very honest, I just wanted to make sure you hear my German accent for last time. Yeah, right, so we accomplished that. But I wanted to say a few words because this has been an incredible journey for me, and life is a journey, and most of the time you really don't know where it takes you. I can assure you, if someone had told me about 24 years ago when we moved to the United States that I one day would be a state representative in Georgia and stand as well, I would have laughed out loud. But this is where life takes you. My family came to the United States in 1997 following a job transfer for my husband. And initially we thought we just would stay for 2 years, right? It became a longer 2 years than we expected. And our kids were growing up as Americans. We gradually integrated in the American society. We liked it here. I became an adjunct professor, and slowly we integrated. And after a few years, we made the decision that we wanted to stay, and we wanted to become US citizens, which we did in 2011. And one of the main reasons we decided to become US citizens because we said if we decided or when we decide to stay here, we want to be able to participate and have a voice. And to do this, and this is my strong German democratic upbringing, you need to have the right to vote. I started to get involved in my kids' schools, in the community, and eventually in local politics. And from this initial engagement, one thing led to another. I worked on several campaigns, and when the seat for House District 50, formerly held by now Secretary of State Brett Raffensperger, opened in 2018, no Democrat wanted to run, and I said, well, I'll do it. What could be the worst that could happen? I could lose. But as you can see, I apparently didn't. So Against the odds, I won in one of the tightest elections that year, and I became, to my knowledge, the first German-born American elected to the Georgia Assembly, and also one of the few immigrants in this body. For the record, we have 10% immigrants in Georgia, so I represent not all of them, but I think some of them. The last 4 years have been incredible for me, an incredible learning experience, an experience I would not want to miss. But they also have been very trying. My first session really felt like drinking from a fire hose. Not only was it the legislative process so strange and foreign to me, I started to notice that I was really an odd one out. You know, most of you have lived in Georgia for a long time. Right, Dean Smyrie? I mean, a really long time. I overheard conversations of where you went to high school, where your families lived, and so on. For comparison, the longest time I ever lived in one place was 11 years in Greensboro, North Carolina. So I didn't even manage in Germany to stay long in a place. But I lived for 34 years in Germany. I'm probably the only person here in the assembly who hasn't lived in Georgia for oodles of years. But you know what? Citizen is not a question of seniority or for how long you lived in a place. Citizenship is about what you do at the place you make your lives home. I recently had the great privilege and honor to speak at a naturalization ceremony here in Atlanta at the federal courthouse. That was one of the most humbling and moving experiences in my life. Seeing the faces of these new citizens from about 50 countries, their pride, their relief, also their hope, reminded me of the day I stood in their place and of my own journey, and also reminded of me why I ended up where I ended up here today. During that ceremony, I realized that probably the greatest accomplishment of my endeavor as a state representative is not how many bills I passed. For the record, I didn't pass any, but that I serve as a role model to other immigrants. My work as a representative encourages many to get involved in the political process, to get to know their communities and to do their part to make this America, our America, a better place. And of that, I'm very proud. I also am very grateful for the incredible learning experience I had here and the opportunity to meet so many people whom I could learn from. And I want to thank just a few. My apologies right away, I cannot mention each and every one. But I assure you that I cherish all of you. Your support means a lot to me. I want to thank the former and the currently minority leadership and the whole minority caucus for their support and work and guidance throughout the years. You have been incredible. And no speech can be given without mentioning Dean Smyrie. You get 2 mentions this time. Thank you for always being there, for answering my questions, or allowing me to vent when I had to get something off my chest. I wish you all the best for your endeavors in becoming an ambassador. I also want to thank my sweet mate Debbie Buckner for allowing me to raid her candy jar. Not that we're not getting enough candy in the anteroom, but also, I mean, especially for sharing her political wisdom. I will miss those candy jar chats. And I wish to give a special thanks to my seatmate, Representative Sam Park, who always had a response to my continuous questions about, can you tell me what this bill is about? And I want to give a special mention to Natural Resource Committee Chair Lynn Smith, because being on your committee gave me the opportunity to appreciate the great natural beauty of our state even more. I got to learn some really cool stuff. I now know where and how the gopher turtle lives, what a living seashore is, what a sewer vortex looks like, and I even got to go out with the DNR state barologist. Yes, there is a state barologist. And we got to look for bear dens, which was a really cool trip. I want to thank Speaker Ralston, Betsy, Camille, the clerk, and everybody behind me for always being so professional and keeping us on track. Your work is truly appreciated. And I finally want to thank my husband, Fabian Kauscher, for his support and love. I could not have done it without him. While he prefers to stay in the background, he supported me through thick and thin, every high and every low of this public role provides. He's my best friend and the love of my life, and I'm looking forward to spending more quality time with him. Many of you asked me why I chose not to run again, and the easiest answer is just, I think I have done what I could do best, to the best of my abilities. And now is the time for the next person to take this work further. But before I close, I want to close with a few takeaways, with a few things that stand out to me, because I still feel I look at all this with the lens of an outsider sometimes. The realization that with whatever we do in here, with every bill we pass, we affect people's lives and livelihoods, whether we raise or lower the taxes, whether we provide better funding or access for mental health or not, whether we expand Medicaid or not, or whether we allow our own prejudices and convictions to blur our judgment or not. It affects people's lives. And change for the better, unfortunately, comes very, very slowly. Sadly, the increasing divisiveness has diminished our ability sometimes to truly reach across the political divide. And while I was very proud to be part of the passing of Georgia's hate crime bill and the repeal of citizens' arrest, I was saddened, really saddened, that a young black man had to lose his life to trigger true action. And finally, the ever-increasing emphasis on individualism and individual choices, supplemented by the rise of populism. Yes, we all cherish our individual liberty and freedom of choice. But the first three words of our Constitution say, we, the people, and not me, the people. As a society, we cannot function if we only focus on individuals, and we have to focus on the needs of the society as a whole. It is okay to criticize government, but there's a difference between wanting to improve government and advocating government nihilism. We need to bring back the we and we the people. I will be leaving this body with gratefulness, but also with worries about where we're heading. Regardless, I look towards the future with hope that integrity and justice and honesty will prevail, regardless of the party that claims leadership. I'm truly honored to have had the opportunity to serve the people of my district and the people of Georgia. I look forward to staying involved in my community, and I will continue to work for a better Georgia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, everyone. It has a true blessing to get to know you. Thank you very much.
All right, we have a number of announcements. You can listen up to these as you're greeting Representative Kauscher. Chair recognizes Representative Walensky for an announcement. Chair recognizes Chairman Evstration for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Judiciary Committee is moving to room 133, 133 Ways and Means upon adjournment.
Chair recognizes Chairman Heath Clark for an announcement.
The House Defense and Veterans Affairs Committee will meet in CLOB 506 upon adjournment.
Chair recognizes Chairman Collins for an announcement.
The Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee, Subcommittee 2A, will meet upon adjournment in 406 CLOB. We have 2 bills. Should be quick and easy if you'll come on.
Chair recognizes Chairman Ballinger for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Juvenile Justice Committee meeting that was scheduled for this afternoon at 3 is canceled. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Shaw Blackman for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will have a brief meeting at 4 o'clock in room 606 in the CLOB. Please keep an eye on your email for any changes to that. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Chairman Knight for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll remind everyone of the Sportsman's Caucus shooting event tomorrow night. It will be at Stoddard's, Midtown, 5 to 8. Really need you. If you have not RSVP'd yet, please RSVP to Wanda in my office, because we need to make sure we got a head count and know what, how much food and all, and we know who's coming. If you did not get an invite by email, that means you may have not signed up to be a member of the caucus. If you will, again, go to the office and talk to Wanda, and we'll have sign-ups available there. But tomorrow night, 5 to 8, Stoddard's, Midtown. Please RSVP.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dickey for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We got a House Agriculture Consumer Affairs Committee in the morning at 8 o'clock, CLOB 406.
Chair recognizes Chairman Burchett for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Judiciary Non-Civil will meet in 132 upon adjournment. We got 4 bills. Thank you.
You will, if I could have your attention, please, particularly committee chairs. You will notice a little bit different start time in the morning when the majority leader makes his motion. I'm going to encourage committee chairs, if they need to call a meeting for in the morning, to do that. They're doing that, I understand, across the hall, and so you're going to have a little extra time for that if you want to take advantage of it. Chair recognizes Chairman Cooper for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Health and Human Services will meet at 3:15 in LOB 606. Health and Human Services.
That completes our announcements. The chair recognizes the majority leader of the House. Completes the announcements. We've got some more bills. The clerk has a handful of local bills that have come over from the Senate. I think both parties. Chair is going to ask for unanimous consent that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended to allow these bills to be read for the first time and assigned to committee. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is so ordered. They will all be assigned to intragovernmental coordination. Now, Chair recognizes the majority leader of the House for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand in recess until 5 p.m. today, then stand adjourned until 11 a.m. Wednesday, March the 30th, 2022.
The majority leader has moved that this House be in recess until 5 p.m. today, whereupon we would stand adjourned until Wednesday, March 30th at 11 a.m. 11 a.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. This House will be in recess until 5 p.m. Then we will be adjourned until